Hi all and welcome back to my channel of an everyday life of an Aspie. As you're aware, basically I'm trying to do as much autism related topics this week before the end of the week at least, hopefully to get some out of the way via of the World Autism Day. Some people you may have watched that are autistic that went on the bandwagon to actually share some autistic like topics based on certain ones may have finished, they may not have, they may be still continuing, who knows. But in all further ado guys, this one's basically, we're going to go over a few basics on understanding, explaining autism to an autistic child, even if it is your child or a child that you're working with. As we know, with so many resources that are readily available now, that we can access it to our advantage via through book, comics versus internet resources of articles, blogs and whatnot. As I said, the world is an oyster, and as a parent, basically for you guys who are one, basically you will need to be prepared to handle the discussion in a positive way to your child, or just a child in general that you're working with. Before I go any further, basically I'll introduce myself for those of you who are new and just landed on my page. I'm Aspie Answers. I'm all about creating mental health and autism like videos, as well as educating individuals, advocating to all about autism and mental health, taking you all on a journey what life is like for me as an autistic adult when I'm able, obviously with fun and games and some other host of variety of videos that I'm hoping to put into perspective when it comes to life. So if you're into any of these and you want to join me as a YouTube family member, feel free to smash that subscribe button on the bottom right hand corner and turn on the notification bell. It would be much appreciated so you don't miss any future videos when I post. As I said before, basically like explaining autism to an autistic child, basically when it comes down to after their diagnosis and whatnot, as you know, can be a difficult time for most of us, or tough, because obviously, you know, some of us may not be able to handle it. But I have shared about my diagnosis story about my Asperger's syndrome, which I'll link in the iCard as well as below me, how I felt after being diagnosed, because obviously in saying this, like for some of us it can be a relief after finding out that we may have autism or some form of diagnosis that comes hand in hand with autism, so that we can actually manage it or treat it in a way that will be easy for not just the parent but also the one that's got the diagnosis in itself. Basically, as we know, for this I'm going to give you a few tips along the way to make the conversation go smoother between you and the child. Basically, as I said, by also in saying this, giving you and the child a better understanding of autism. But first and foremost, I must state it clear as a disclaimer, I am no medical doctor, I'm just your normal Joe vlogs. So if you see anything out of the ordinary, please seek medical advice or second opinion for yourself or your loved one, as well as if you see any signs and symptoms that may correlate or what have you, because I don't want you to do harm. Some of this also will be based on what I've learned in my experiences of my everyday life, versus also hearing out on the autistic community and just gathering resources that I feel would be fit deemed into these topics I'm giving you. So again, basically, as we know, basically the first number priority is keeping things simple and real. Explaining in too much detail will overwhelm the child that you're actually explaining it to. It might do more harm than good. So here are a few key ways or suggestions or advice from me as an autistic to you guys to explain autism, as well as also maybe some resources that I can give you what I've found along the way. But the very first question you may be asking is, what is autism? I have clearly basically shared what is autism based on my video, which I'll link in the iCard above me and below me. But in saying this, I'll be really short by giving you hopefully a brief understanding from what I know of. But you know, as explaining autism, you got to remember also, according to the age and maturity of the child, basically this may be slightly different, but still the basis of what you need to explain. Maybe just simply put it as autism means that your brain works differently from other children's brains, or some autistics call it that were like different operating system in the mindset of how we process information and how we do our form of communication and everything else. Because as I said before, not all autistics are the same. When you think that you've met one and you basically think, oh, they're autistic as well, don't forever assume just because they're showing maybe different signs of autism that they're not. You never know, but best bet is just to seek out professional help. Basically, in saying this, also you may also need to find out more about autism yourself as a parent or educator or whoever, and about autism yourself in order to answer any questions the child of yours may have, or just a child in general that may come up to you if you are educating them. Basically, There are 8 key things to know about autism, which I did share, obviously, which you can see, like I said, about the signs and symptoms or the characteristics, especially in an autistic female, which I'll link in the iCard and put it below me. As I said, remember to keep it short, simple, and to the point, or as the famous quota is for this is KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Many people with autism don't understand sarcasm, as you're aware. They may not understand some of the metaphors until maybe they reach a much older, immature age. Also, in saying this, basically, now next step is explaining autism in a positive way. So this one is whenever you talk to your child or whoever it is around or near the time about autism, remember to keep it positive. Be open and honest about autism. Teaching different, not less, is an ideal way when explaining autism to a child with autism, obviously, because obviously that's one of the slogans that most of us basically live by. Different, not less. Even though there is a huge stigma around autism still, as well as mental health, basically, and that's why I'm here, hopefully, to demolish some of this stuff for you guys, for your understanding, so on and so forth. You are your child's biggest advocate. You're their role model, you're the teacher, you're everything. Obviously the child comes to see you first in their everyday life, obviously from birth to teen to adult and what have you. Alright, so therefore you need to be wearing on your crown or whatever label as an advocate or whatever for your child, especially when it comes down to when they age and stuff, and you feel that you need to speak out about how your child, is different from others. Basically, when you meet other people out on the street, we shouldn't be fearful or judgmental about people that are different, because being different can be so exhilarating and exciting and a bit a roller coaster of other emotions all in one as well. How you see autism is how they will see autism as well, obviously, after you explain it to them. Okay, the survival guide for kids with autism spectrum disorders and their parents. Obviously, this positive, straightforward book is one of the resources that offers kids with autism spectrum disorders their own comprehensive resource for both understanding their condition and finding tools to cope with the everyday challenges they may face every day, thus depending on their age, obviously. Because as we know, for each autistic child, as they transition into teen to adult, they may find difficulties somewhere as they're transitioning into everyday life, as I mentioned. So therefore, in saying this, basically, also, some children with autism spectrum disorders, as we know, are gifted. Others may struggle academically. Some may have gifts in, art, crafts, maths, and everything else, or what have you, but just bear in mind that not all autistic will be a mathematical genius or a computer genius, because everybody has that conception or ideal of autistic children and teens alike that they're basically the same or they're good enough. Some get stuck on things or have limited interest or experience repetitive movements like flapping or pacing or stims. So in this part here, basically with the limited interest or whatever, or they may have one sort of interest or obsession, which I've actually clearly mentioned about in one of my videos, which I'll link in the icon above me as well as below me in the description if you want to find out more. As well as saying this, I've talked about specifically also in saying this about what stims are and the different types of stims. Again, that will also come in the icon above me as well as in the description below me. The Survival Guide for Kids with Autism Spectrum Disorders cover all these areas with an emphasis on helping children gain new self-understanding and self-acceptance of themselves. Meant to be read with a parent, the book addresses questions such as what I've just mentioned, what is autism spectrum disorder, why me, and provides certain strategies for communicating, making and keeping friends and succeeding in school. Another resource you could think of is The Girl Who Thought in Pictures, which is obviously a story about Dr. Temple Grandin, because as we know, there are many famous people out there that has autism as well, as we know of. Okay, this one is about meeting Dr. Temple Grandin, one of the world's quirkiest science heroes, obviously, that you can actually find out more about. When a young Temple was diagnosed with autism, no one expected her to talk, let alone become one of the most powerful voices in modern science. Yet the determined visual thinker did just that. Her unique mind obviously allowed her to connect with animals in a special way, helping her invent groundbreaking improvements for farms around the globe. Another resource is were amazing. 1, 2, 3, a story about friendship and autism. This one is based on the first Sesame storybook to focus on autism, which according to the most recent US government survey may in some form affect as many in 1 in 45 children. It's part of Sesame Street's autism initiative that has expanded to include a new character with autism, which is Julia, obviously Elmo's long time friend, basically, who introduces Julia to Abby, who's a little confused at first because Julia isn't saying hello, not, looking at her and making eye contact and whatnot. Elmo explains that Julia has autism, so she does things a little differently. Julia sometimes avoids direct eye contact, if you may have seen with your kids about it. Flaps her arms when she's excited and sensitive to some noises. But Abby soon learns that she also has a lot of things in common with Julia. All kids want love, friendship, acceptance, and have fun. They are wonderful, each in his or her own way. I might share about a bit about the controversy about how they introduced Elmo's friend Julia in the next videos over. If you want me to, let me know in the comment section my thoughts of it, because I've been reading the negatives and positives aspects of what parents and people feel about it, so please feel free to let me know in the actual description box. All My Stripes, a story for children with autism. This story is about Zane, a zebra with autism, who worries that his difference make him stand out from his peers. Careful guidance from his mother, Zane learns that autism is only one of the many qualities that makes him special. It contains a note to parents by Drew Coleman, PhD, and Alan Brayton, PhD, as well as a forward by Alison Singer, president of the Autism Science Foundation. Another resource is Different Not Less, a children's book about autism. Children with autism can do amazing, incredible things, as I said. You can use this book to teach your child about autism spectrum disorder. The poem will explain how those diagnosed are different, but also wish to be included in most social circles in everyday life. The poem was written by the father of a son with ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, or as many people would like to be called, person with autism or an autistic person and whatnot. Again, I mentioned a clarification about all these first language terms about what people want to be called on one of my videos, which I'll link in the icon above me and below me. This book will give you an opportunity to explain the diagnosis to your child when you believe they are able to understand. Another one is Different Not Less, a children's book about autism, was written with children in mind. The text is big and bold and runs down the page similar to a list format. This should help avoid the skipping of words, since it is easy for parents to cover up words as the child reads. Each page also has a hidden word, red letters mixed in with the black letters spell uplifting words for those diagnosed with autism. Different Like Me is another book, my book of autism heroes. This introduces children at the ages of 8 to 12 years to famous inspirational figures from around the world of science, art, literature, math, philosophy and comedy, and so much more. One of which, in a clear example, is 8-year-old Quinn, a young boy with Asperger's syndrome, tells young readers about the achievements and characteristics of his autism heroes, from Albert Einstein, Diane Fossey, and Wassily Kandinsky, to Carol, Benjamin Banneker and Julia Bowman Robinson, among many others. All excel in different fields, but are united by the fact they are often found it difficult to just fit in, like Quinn. Illustrated in colour and written in child-friendly language, this book will be a wonderful resource for children, particularly children with autism, their parents, teachers, carers and siblings alike. So this quickly ends a very short video, hopefully, of explaining autism to your child, a how-to comprehension guide. Smash the like if you like this. Comment below please to let me know how your conversation went, if you're about to actually start a conversation with your child with autism. And saying this, a question I want to throw at you: what was the most successful part of your talk to your child with autism when you brought this topic up with your child? And all for the do, guys. Thanks for your support, thanks for watching. Do what you love what you do. Until next time, Aspie signing out, and I'll see you again soon.